Thank you guys for being here. This is the STEM Gems session. The STEM Gems program is a part of U.S. Energy. I guess it's probably appropriate that I introduce myself. I'm co-chairing the Futurism track with Bu. I also the director for U.S. Energy. We like to say we're a social impact nonprofit that works on sustainability coordination and solutions engineering. And we do that a variety of different ways. We have the Carbon Summit that's at Boise State in the spring and April. We're working on the STEM Gems program. That's what we're going to hear. You're going to hear from all of these guys about. And this is the exact presentation that I gave to One Stone, who has a cohort of 3 different student groups that are working on these problem statements. And I'm going to try to run through it quick because these are the stars of the show today. And so with that said, we've boiled down numerous problems to 3 what we call wicked problems or ubiquitous problems that not only apply to the city in Idaho, but can be applied pretty much anywhere. The first one being Idaho is currently in a state of runaway sprawl. It is set to lose 146,000 productive agricultural acres by 2040. And that's with business as usual going on right now. And so if you put that into context, that's losing the equivalent of Zion's National Park. And so that's a big deal for Idaho. The second being the city of Boise government plans to be carbon neutral by 2035, and for the entire city to be carbon neutral by 2050. And so the city has a climate action roadmap, and they have it pretty much all laid out, but there's some gaps in there. One being, like an example, would be the airport. There's not a good solution for sustainable aviation fuel, and that's a huge driver of greenhouse gases and just a huge opportunity to decarbonize. The third one is how to make the city of Boise a circular economy. We kind of lack some recycling infrastructure. Boise State is trying to put together a program where they're recycling, whether it's glass or metals, plastics. It historically hasn't been very, very well done. Let's just say that. I guess here's a little bit more about us. Our vision is really to identify, promote, and help scale what we call sustainable solutions. And with the STEM Gems program, we believe that the best way to do that is having the students build out this open source platform where we help them provide opportunities and incentives for them to stay engaged and to build this out. And we also do that through our SEEDS principle. And it's an acronym analogy, best way to use my hand. So it's sustainability, energy, education, diversity, synergy. You basically have to plant these seeds to grow community. And we believe that these guys are the future, and they're going to have to do the work to work on these big problems. And so with that said, here's the Farms Under Threat, the American Farmland Trust, basically outlines the state of runaway sprawl that we're in. They did this last year, and they had it under business as usual, but the data already shows that we're in runaway sprawl. The students, when they're working on these problem statements, they need to know who the stakeholders are. So we try to tell them that, hey, it's the state, local governments, the city, obviously national. We have a big corporate presence here in Boise, and we're going to need all the stakeholders to allow these students to tackle some of these. The carbon neutrality, I think there's common practices, and I think that the city of Boise has a really unique opportunity to not only lead Idaho, but be a leader in the region. But like I said, I think it's going to take some finding common ground for common good, and that's really the goal of this panel, is to flush that out. And then circular economies. It's a huge problem all across the world. Is how do we recycle our plastics, our glasses, and our metals? I think it starts with going to the manufacturers and saying you need to make 2 or 3 types of plastics, and then making sure that we have the infrastructure, the incentives, and then a kind of a culture of upcycling. And I'll give you a reason. Everything I'm wearing right now is upcycled. And an example of what a STEM gem means to us metaphorically and literally is that this bolo tie that I'm wearing is an Idaho gem. It's we call it Blackjack Jasper, And if you are in the Owyhees and you are out rock hounding, this jasper will look like a dirty old rock. But I have a buddy who owns Hell's Canyon Bolo. He's a lapidary and a silversmith. I give this rock to him. He turns it into a gem. He sets it in silver. I have the matching bell buckle to go along with it. And so that's what we kind of view the students as, is they are an uncut stone, and we ask them what kind of gem they would like to be. And so it's my job to go out and provide the opportunities for them to have a platform and a safe space to talk about what they care about, and then to give them the incentives to go out and achieve those things. And so we believe that competence comes from accomplishments, and so our job is to provide them with opportunities. And with that said, our solution is dreams. You know, like if you've ever seen the word or the movie Hook with Robin Williams, Peter Pan forgot how to dream. And so the adults and the leadership across the globe, not only here in Idaho, are not dreaming. And so we need these kids to remind us how to dream. Because when you have a common goal or you have a common dream, it becomes powerful. It's almost unstoppable. And so we just need to find that common ground, and that's what we're hoping to flush out. And with that said, I will hop off my soapbox here and hand it over to our gracious moderator. He is the CEO of IBL Events, and he also is a board member of the Idaho STEM Action Center. So Nick Aldinger, you're going to have to take it away.
Thanks, Jason, and thanks for all you do and for setting up this awesome panel. And I want to thank all the students who have been involved in getting ready for this. This is a student-led panel, and so we're going to be talking about STEM and what it means to them and what it means to our future, because this is part of the futurism track. And so I really appreciate their time and energy over the last couple weeks in preparing for this. But this is their questions and their answers into some of these questions and problems that are facing us as it relates to STEM. But before we go into the STEM panel, let's hear about who they are and what they have done, because already in a short period of time, they are some of the most accomplished people here in the state of Idaho. I'm just so impressed with their backgrounds and what they've accomplished. So I'm going to start off with you, Shiva. If you could give a little background on who you are, what school you go to, and a little bit about your accomplishments.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, my name is Shiva Rajbhandari. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a senior over at Boise High. And I'm a longtime climate activist and community organizer here. And the first student elected to the Boise School District Board of Trustees. I'm really passionate about building a more participatory democracy. And I think that STEM is how you do that. And I hope we can talk about that more during the panel.
Hi, my name is Cheyon Sheen. I just go by Che. My pronouns are she, hers. And I am a third-year civil engineering student at Boise State University. I have held previous positions in student government and was the previous sustainability policy and planning coordinator at Boise State University. And I'm passionate about tackling infrastructure challenges by building creative, resilient, and sustainable solutions.
My name is James Martinez. I won state Rocket League with my teammates. This is one of them. I'm a junior in high school, and I just kind of strive to be the best I can be. And I'm not really that interesting of a person, but I hope that this opportunity will get me somewhere. And now I'm passing it off to him.
I'm Keegan Worrell. I also go to Nampa. I'm a junior. Like he said, we won State Rocket League last year, and we've had 2 little tournaments this year that we've also won. Granted, we didn't have our main person in the kickoff tournament, but I'd like to try and help, even if it's just my school, try and build up their esports program. Like, we are just a club. Last year, we barely got into state, just barely. Everything was just thrown together, and if I could help kids or anybody that wants to do esports, I'd like to try and help them out with that. And that's really
James, by the way, you are very interesting, and I think you have a lot to tell us about. But I also want to say thank you, because at the very last minute, he jumped in on this panel, and that's courage, and also just the willingness to do something at the last minute. So appreciate you jumping on this panel today. So let's talk about STEM. So as it relates to you and what it means to you, I would like to go through and kind of hear what STEM means to you. How would you define STEM? We all know it stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. We like to also put in the words arts, so STEAM. But what does STEM really mean to you? So if you could define it, obviously in any way you can. But let's start with you, Keegan.
Be a pretty plain answer, but I see it as just an opportunity to get what I'm trying to get to, like helping with the esports program for everyone at my school and etc. I see it as a fun chance to just go around and just help people. Today we just got down here and went around Boise. We never go to Boise, and it was very fun. We got those $20 tickets. We went, we got some good stuff, had fun, came back, and now we're doing this pretty cool panel and having a good time. So
I see it as an opportunity. I don't really get much opportunities like this, and just me being up here and talking to all of you guys is amazing. And like he said, we don't come down to Boise at all, and getting those $20 tickets or just seeing all of this is amazing. And STEM was able to bring this up, and I think that is absolutely fantastic on what they're doing, and the fact that they're helping a young kid like us. That means that they can help others out as well. And I think that is absolutely fantastic. So I see it as an opportunity just for more than just Rocket League, as for life in general too.
I think STEM for me is, especially engineering, is being able to find real life solutions to social problems.
I think STEM, like these guys were saying, is an opportunity not just to guide an individual in life, but also to guide a society. I think Neil deGrasse Tyson says, you can't argue with the science, like it or not, it's true. And I think that is really powerful when you apply that to our society as a whole, because especially right now in the age of misinformation and polarization, STEM is what keeps us on track and is what tells us, this is how we get from point A to point B. And it's really, is this right or is it not? There's not an opinion about it. And I think that is so powerful for building resiliency in a community and guiding a community in the direction that we need to go.
So I'd like to take that just one level down or up, however you want to look at it. But with STEM, how is it viewed within the younger generation? I mean, you mentioned, we're in a polarizing world, and sometimes even science is questioned. And so when we look at STEM, whether it's from technology, from engineering, math, arts, or science, how is it viewed within your peers, amongst your peers? How is it viewed? Is it accepted? Do you think it's getting the attention that it needs? Or is it still just an acronym?
Personally, if this was before you guys reached out to me, I'd be like, sounds lame, sounds like some nerdy crap. I'm going to go back to sitting on the couch, watching TV or going and playing with my animals. So I think it's still just an acronym. I don't think it means anything to everyone. Not a lot of people actually understand it. I bet if you were to go to, say, our school and ask just random people, not go for like the specifically nerdy ones, but just, the normal ones. they'd be like, oh, STEM, nerdy thing, I don't care. So I think with this, we got to make it so people understand it and know that it's not just that nerdy thing that only the top, super good kids at everything when it comes to academics can be involved with, and that sort of deal. Ooh.
I think that I'm along with what Keegan has said. I feel like they'd see it kind of more, like I said, as an opportunity, but also they wouldn't quite understand it. But if we open their eyes, they would be all aboard on what you guys are trying to do, because it's absolutely fantastic what you guys are trying to do. And I feel like if we just open their eyes a bit more, we can do great things. And that's what I think.
For me, growing up in rural Idaho, STEM definitely was just an acronym. It was like, okay, lots of big words. I'm not really sure how to apply math and science to the real world. In high school, there was every single class period to be like, but teacher, like, we're not going to ever use this in real life. And now, being in college, definitely all of my peers in my department understand what STEM means. But when I tell other people in other schools, oh yeah, I'm a civil engineering major, they're like, oh my gosh. And then that's it. Like, there's no like further engagement to what does that mean to you? What are you gonna do with this? So that's what STEM seems like right now.
I agree. I think STEM in schools is something that, like, it's totally a buzzword that we throw around so much, and it really almost does lose that meaning. It's like people stop thinking of STEM as, this opportunity to, like, the reason we group those together, there is a reason, right? It's that it's high-paying jobs that we need that are going to push our society forward, right? And I think that is kind of lost sometimes in the way that we talk about STEM in schools. So I think that application is so important that Shay is talking about. I think making sure that when we're talking about STEM in schools, we're talking about, here's how you can apply this to your life. Here's why we're learning this. I feel like that's so important because people don't realize how much we use, like, how much STEM is all around us. Like, look at this room right here. Think about, like, the engineering. I mean, Shay could probably tell you the engineering that it took to build this room with this, circular formation. I don't know. Tell us about this. Tell us about the civil engineering of this room, Shay.
It's personal. I love it as well.
But like, it's those kind of things that literally do apply to every aspect of our lives. If we want to go and create something in the world, and we want to be remembered for something more than a job, for something that actually adds to the human experience, that takes STEM. And I think that is sometimes lost in our education system. So that's why I think it's important to build those learner-focused systems and really communicate not just how to learn and what you're learning, but why we're learning it and how you can apply that to your real life. And that's why I think it's so important to have gamers on the STEM panel, because that's like a perfect example of how STEM applies to something that a lot of folks are interested in.
And I think the word that I keep hearing over and over again is opportunity. And STEM is all shapes and sizes, and it's not a specific person. It's not a specific trade. It's now surrounds us in everything we do. I mean, science is literally built on everything that we do in our lives. Technology, we live in a world of walking technology, especially with our phones, let alone in the work that we do. And then engineering and math. It's so important, but we do associate STEM as an acronym or think it's someone that's nerdy when it's quite the opposite. It's everybody and everything that we do. So let's talk about, we talked that we have to change kind of the perception of STEM, but let's talk about, from your perspective, how can we incentivize it? How can we provide these opportunities or make it more fun or make it more engaging when we talk about STEM and the opportunities, not only within our schools, but in the work that we do?
I think the advertising is the biggest thing. When I see things like ICAT, I think of, boring. You ever done, what is it called? I think it's just ISATs, right? Right, Shiva? those long 2-3 hour SATs, yeah, those long, boring, like give me my mince or my string cheese and go away sort of thing. I lump, yeah. Oh, you got juice boxes? You're getting paid? Yeah, no, I didn't get no juice boxes. I got mints. Wow. But I think the advertising is a huge part because I see an ICAT. There's literally a little thing for ICAT in my construction class, and it's very boring. It has like tiny little technology things. And it's like dot dot dot. This. That's not very appealing. And when I see that, I think of STEM. I don't remember the last time I've seen anything STEM related personally in my school, unless it was maybe when I was signing up for classes, and that's it. So getting advertising, making sure the advertising is good, like to multiple people, and I think that's probably the top 3 in reasons of, yeah.
Advertising, I was also going to say that too, but I was kind of thinking like how colleges go to schools and how they kind of present, because like in my auto body class, if a college goes to my class and says this, and it's going to kind of make me want to learn more about it or be intrigued about it. So I feel like if we can do something like that, honestly, not even certain, just it'll open eyes, and it'll be kind of almost like advertising and getting the name more out there. And I feel like if we do that, then we can definitely start something that's just bigger than us in a room talking about this, so we can be known. Like if it's brought up as STEM, then we're gonna know what it is. Like he said, like the app, it's known. It's just an app. It's boring. But if we can get out there and just kind of talk, like in classes or just go to schools and talk about that, it kind of get the younger generation, we definitely open a lot of eyes.
I love the point about communication, and I think really communication is key when it comes to getting more students in STEM. Right now, it feels like going into a STEM field, it feels like a big commitment, you know? You have to go take OChem, and everyone knows, how easy that is to fail. You have to, stay up late, type it on your computer. When I think about STEM, I think of my dad, who is an ASIC engineer over at Micron. And I don't want his life. He works like 70 hours a week, and he loves it, sure, but it's not something that can possibly excite me, staying up till 3 a.m., typing away on my like green and blue computer screen for like some corporation, right? The way we framed STEM, and maybe it's almost a compounding problem because we have so few, people going into STEM, but the way we frame STEM is this big commitment, that as it compares to the humanities, when I'm considering, what college classes I want to take, when I'm considering what opportunities are available to me, what leaders are out there who we look up to and learn about in schools, humanities seems a lot more appealing. And I think that notion is wrong, especially when at a time like today when, just 20% of college students are majoring in STEM fields. And we need those fields so badly. I think we need to bring a grassroots approach to STEM. And I think people roll their eyes, right, when they hear this like politician on a panel about STEM. What's the connection there? But I think that that universities and academia can take a lesson from grassroots organizers, which is when you make engagement easy, when you make engagement accessible to everyone, that's when you're going to get that engagement, and that's when you're going to get people committed who will then go on to do something they never even thought they could, like electing the next world leader. Right? It all starts with 1 hour door knocking for your school board trustee or your city council member, and I think it can be really similar with STEM. Maybe it just starts with one class on computer programming, or just a quick session on how to design the best marshmallow tower. It needs to be lower commitment, and there need to be more opportunities for folks who aren't nerds, for normal folks, as Keegan says, to understand it and learn it, because we can't pick and choose. We need more people in STEM right now, and to do that, we need to make it more accessible.
I think I'll give an example of maybe what that like grassroots organizing on a STEM level might look like. So I think a week ago, the civil engineering group at Boise State, we volunteered at a Girl Scouts event, and we like introduced them a little bit to STEM. And one of the things we helped them do was build an arch without any glue or tape. And so you have these pieces, and they're trying to figure out how to put it together. And they're like, oh, okay. And they finally figured it out. They're really excited. They're like, I've made this arch. And now we tell them about like the sciences. How is this the way it is? And then we go a step further, and it's like, okay, now why is this important for society? Why is this important for people? And then we talk to them about like back a long, long time ago when people didn't want to live super close to rivers anymore. Like they built these huge arches that would bring the water all the way into their cities. And so that's how you like created communities that thrived. And I think that is like the biggest thing for me personally is how do I apply engineering and how do I increase the quality of life for humans? And so a lot of like people want to go into humanities because we want to help people. We want to like, I don't know, go into politics or go into like business and do these things that seem very applicable. But STEM is just as applicable, if not even more, in my opinion.
Well, thank you for your candid answers on that question, but I kind of want to, Che, go into a little bit more detail on I made a comment earlier about rural. I mean, obviously you're from rural Idaho. I myself also from rural Idaho, high five there. But we definitely would agree in talking a little and hearing in our pre-meetings, there is a difference into access and opportunities with rural versus a city when it comes to STEM. I do want to read a stat that I thought was really interesting, but not surprising. And I would love to get your take on this. And it happens to deal with the lack of STEM access. And it's one of the biggest critical issues facing STEM. And it relates to getting more people involved because we do need more people involved in STEM. But in fact, across the US, this is a study done by the Pew Research Center, but across the US, more than half of high schools do not offer calculus. 4 out of 10 do not offer physics, and more than 1 in 4 do not offer chemistry. And more than 1 in 5 do not offer algebra 2. That is very surprising when it comes to STEM. So let me ask you this question in hearing that stat, is how can STEM be more engaging or more inclusive to a wider community? And Chase, since I picked on you on your question, how can we help give more access to these rural communities for STEM?
Funding for schools. And that's a big, big problem in Idaho, being ranked one of the lowest public education states in the US. Growing up in Rexburg, around Rexburg and then around Twin Falls area, sometimes I talk to Shiva and I'm like, what, you have that class and you have this class and you get to take all these electives? I'm like, we didn't have that. Like, I think I took like 3 AP classes and that's all we offered. And my senior year, we got like AP Chem, and nobody had any idea what like they were doing. Our teacher didn't even know what she was doing. And honestly, it comes down to funding. All the times my teachers would be like, if only we had this, or if only we could do more actual lab experiments, or if we could even offer these classes that are vital in growing a student's mind. Yeah, and I know Shiva, you could talk a lot about this.
About school funding. I mean, I agree. I think school funding is so key. And I think, there's a reason why, we see those rural urban gaps. And it's not because rural kids are stupid or rural teachers are stupid. It's because, there's a resource gap, right? Here in the Boise School District, we have, the property tax income to fund the Dennis Technical Education Center, which is, a world-renowned STEM education center that every student in the Boise School District has access to. At my high school, we offer like 75% of the AP courses available in the country. We have academics coming into our schools, and we have easy access to the Albertsons Library at Boise State, where we can conduct, novel research on really any topic that interests us. And that is where STEM and public policy connect again, which is that, if we want to compete with China, if we want to, get this great new Micron facility that's breaking ground, we need to have the workers who are excited and able to fill those roles. And without investing in education, both K-12 and higher education, we can't do that. And that's an issue right here in Idaho, right? We see these constant attacks on our public schools from leaders in our legislature. And even though the vast majority of Idahoans support public education, it's this small vocal minority that bullies the majority into, reducing funding for public schools or passing legislation to undermine certain marginalized groups in our schools. And that's not how we expand access to STEM, right? It is completely contradictory to me, because it's the very people who claim to, support growing our economy and pro-business legislators who then turn around and refuse to educate the workforce that businesses need in order to grow in our state. And I think that's a battle that we fought for a long time, that we're going to continue fighting. And I'm excited about the $400 million that were just passed for public schools. But that moved us from 51st out of 50 states in DC to 49th in per pupil education funding. So we still got a long ways to go if we want to attract high-paying STEM jobs to Idaho.
So going back to the urban question, I'll say schools, like target the youth. The youth is definitely a big target that I would say we want to go for, because we can kind of, like, if we go to schools, we can, like I said, open their eyes and maybe just kind of spread it around. Because I wouldn't say billboards or signs, because when you're driving and you see a sign, you're driving right past that. You're not going to read it, oh, wow. Yeah. Then you just drive right past it. But I feel like if we target the youth, that could actually mean a lot. We can just kind of spread it to more teachers. We can spread it to students, and not just high schoolers, even colleges per se. You can do that. Yeah, I feel like if we do target schools, or just go into schools and just kind of explain why this is good, or just say what your main cause is, and then we can probably get STEM more out in those urban communities, in those urban areas. That's what I think.
Personally, I think you guys said everything that I've thought of. I can't really think of anything but to just go yeah, well said. Yeah, especially Shiva. I don't even think of you as a politician. I just think of you as a well-educated individual, especially for a high schooler. Yeah, see what happens when you go to a Boise school? This is Nampa, that's Boise. All right, boom. There's your example right there. You get the good stuff he's got, maybe we boom, boom. Just saying.
Well, and when it comes to urban versus rural, there's still obviously a gap. I think that with technology and advancements, we've made huge improvements just in the last few decades, obviously because of technology being more connected. But it's still amazing we still have gaps that we do. And I think you hit on some great points with funding. Do you think that there's still an opportunity where private versus public, where on the private side, when it comes to corporations helping close that gap when it comes to funding, do you think that opportunity really exists? And how can we help get those private organizations more involved?
I think if the private sector wants to invest in education, they need to be investing in public schools. And I think that Micron has done a really good job of advocating for education. I remember when my mom was considering pulling me out of public schools because of the Looney Laws, right, back in 2012. And I think Micron is really a great example of a company that's put their money where their mouth is when it comes to education. But we need to see more of that, right? Micron's not the only tech company. We're here at Jack's Urban Meeting Place. There's Simplot right there. Do they want more genetic scientists to engineer the next generation of French fries? HP's over there out west. They stopped giving money to public schools. I think in 2010, I was 6 years old, was the last time they gave a grant here in Idaho to establish a public school presence. I think it's time that corporations put their money where their mouth is and really stand up for public schools. Not just with grants, but also with being vocal, against these special interest groups that attempt to undermine our public schools in Idaho.
Sorry to cut the order, but personally, something like this kind of gave me that drive to do a lot of my work so far for school. The past, freshman, sophomore, those 2 years, I was kind of just riding through. I was just at high school to get a high school experience. Nothing too crazy, nothing extracurricular, nothing really exciting except for, maybe a class here and there. But I was never really like, woo, school, But with this, I'm pretty excited to get my grade up and do everything I really can. And so this could help get so many other people for like, what are the jobs you guys were saying? Like engineering? Yeah, engineering. They could inspire future engineers with a program like this, like how I'm being inspired to get my work done and do this.
That's awesome to hear. I just want to bounce off of what Shiva was saying. I know when Boise State University was losing lots of funding for supporting students like me who fit in not like the majority stereotype or majority of the demographics. I remember talking to President Trump, and she was saying, or we were hearing about how, the legislature was like trying to pull funding from Boise State University. And she was telling me like, but I don't remember who it was, but like Micron called her and was like, we got your back. Like, we understand the importance of education and understanding and supporting students who come from rural areas in Idaho, who come from different backgrounds and who need that extra support. So corporations definitely can lead the way, and they some of them have been. So I'm excited to see more, and hopefully we can push that.
This is sponsored by a corporation.
By what?
That's right.
Should we take a moment to thank our sponsor?
Absolutely. This commercial break brought to you by. No. But that's a great point, though. I mean, these communities' involvement, the sponsors for this event, made this possible, which is spreading more awareness, not only obviously within STEM, but being the entrepreneurial spirit. So, good points. Let's talk about STEM as it relates to our future, because this is the futurism track. What do you think and there's no right or wrong answer in this, it's literally your opinion. What do you think is our biggest threat to our future as it relates to STEM?
Communication is definitely one of them. Like not just about getting the word out, but for example, like this today, I found out a couple nights ago. I was absolutely unaware of what was going on. So I feel like if we can kind of get communication down, just like kind of spread the word about STEM opportunities, like not just something like this, that we can definitely tackle way more if we get communication like just down. And if we get that, I feel like we will be pretty good, like wise, just educational wise and this type of wise. I feel like that's pretty good.
I'm not sure. I think that it's a lot of things. I think for me personally, the biggest obstacle that I've had to continuously overcome by pursuing a STEM major is access to resources. I think it was hard just like getting here to college, picking a major that I was like is a little intimidating, mostly white males in the civil engineering field. All my peers are mostly white males. Being able to have access to conferences, these kinds of opportunities, understanding how the market even works for civil engineers, how I can even be hired, how do I get a mentor who's been in this industry, especially like somebody who's a person of color and who's a woman. And so I think there's a lot of layers to that, and I'm not really quite sure how to break it down. But hopefully what I'm hoping with this STEM GEMS program is that we'll be able to go into elementary schools, middle and high schools. And for me, being like the oldest in this program right now, saying to younger girls like, okay, you want to build bridges? Okay, like what's the next step? How can we get you involved? How can we make little Lego bridges? How can you start coding in middle school, et cetera, et cetera? So.
I think that was really well said. And I agree that diversity is really key. One thing I think about that I hear sometimes, I think my dad hears it a lot, is like, go back to where you came from. And my dad's from Nepal, but he's lived here more than half of his life. And I think a trend that we're seeing here in the US is, you know, as we know, Americans aren't pursuing STEM, right? And we're trying to compete for innovation in industry. And I should say Americans aren't pursuing STEM at the rate that it's being pursued, for example, in India and China. And yet we're trying to compete with India and China for innovation and industry. And without allowing immigration, without promoting diversity in industry, we will not be able to compete, right? And I think it's important that we work to build an inclusive community within the STEM field, but also, you know, across the country, so that people of color and people of all genders feel welcome, learning about STEM, and immigrants feel welcome coming to America and paying taxes on the same job that they could have had in India, right? I think that is really key. And I think diversity, demographic diversity, also lends itself towards innovative diversity, right? When you have people from many different backgrounds in the same room, that's how you get the best ideas flowing. And I think building those connections is really key.
I just came back from the Society of Women in Engineering conference in Houston, Texas last weekend, and I met this one engineer who works at 3M, and they were saying it's super important for them to incorporate diversity in what they create and design, right? And so, for example, like in the medical field, there's like this new tool where surgeons can go in with this like robot machine and perform surgeries, but women surgeons are coming to them and saying, we can't use this because the way it was designed for a male's hand. And so they can't do the things that technology is trying to do because it's not accessible. They're not coming in with like a diverse mindset of like, who are the communities that we are actually reaching? Who are the people that are actually going to use this?
Communication, absolutely. This pretty much goes back to all the other points. Basically, people aren't going to be interested in it if all they know is basically, oh, boring, all this. We need to get out there that this can provide like fun opportunities, good opportunities for the future, tell them why that's good, or just anything of that sort, advertising or just telling what we are is the biggest thing. And if we don't do that, we're not going to get anywhere.
I think everyone here brought up amazing points, and communication, obviously, but having access and an inclusive community is so important, but also listening. I think we could have these conversations, and honestly, sometimes these days people don't want to have those conversations, but we need to. And we need to be able to listen to each other, and from that, we may be able to change one life, right? Or get one more person involved with STEM. Whether it's the younger generation, you mentioned even going to the elementary schools, which I think we need to do more of, looking at people looking up to you as someone they want to be when they grow up. This is the stuff that we need to do, and I think being open to communication is key. So thanks for sharing that. We're going to wrap it up with just a couple more questions, and then I'd like to see if there's any questions from the audience for you as well. But as we come to a close, we talked about obviously a threat, but do you see an opportunity to grow STEM in our community? And what would that opportunity look like? I like how everyone passes it to Shiva first.
You want to?
I think there's so many opportunities to grow STEM. I think technical education schools are really like places of wonder. And I mean, education as a whole, but I mean, as you can probably judge, but specifically technical education. And I'm really excited about the new funding that we're getting this next year, specifically for technical education and expanding, that engineering base that we so desperately need, so that students can graduate out of high school with an associate's degree, or they can graduate with a highly marketable skill that then they don't even need to go to college and they can take right into the workforce. That's such a cool opportunity. And I think some of the other stuff that's been brought up like throughout the conference, particularly about communication, getting students aware of the opportunities that are available here in Boise. I think we hear a lot of when we think of STEM, we think of Silicon Valley. Well, why don't we think of the Treasure Valley, right? Just on the skyline, right? You can see STEM everywhere. And I think communicating that to students, especially having diverse messengers, coming in and bringing that message and telling students that, STEM means all of us, is really an opportunity for growth.
I've said it before and I'll say it again, but definitely opportunities like, for example, we had a tournament for Rocket League about a month ago, I'd say, and I had no idea of STEM. And then here I am now talking in front of all you wonderful people. And I think that is what I kind of see is like if we kind of hold events, if we get education, if we get like more of that, we can see kind of better graduation. We can there's gonna be more people in this room if like I said, if we hold events, if we do like amazing stuff like that, then I kind of feel like we can get more people in this room and we can kind of have a better understanding of STEM, if that makes sense. Like little tournaments like those, and then they'll get bigger and bigger and bigger until like we kind of reach what Boise State has, and like it doesn't just have to be about gaming. It can be about anything like engineering or what you guys are interested in. We can hold those events, and then maybe we can have a building like this one day. That's just that's the big picture. That's what I think.
And it goes back to the dreams concept Jason was talking about, right?
Yeah, basically that little tournament we had was kind of like a secret way of putting STEM out there, or an ad, we could do something about cooking, and be like, by the way, you wouldn't be able to do this if we didn't have STEM, and maybe even teach them about that. What's probably one of those like popular things in Boise? Since, it's probably like my 6th time coming here.
So just to that point, it's important to say that I had to kind of hide STEM into the early stages of doing this. Because when you're talking about those three big problem statements, they're too big, even for majority of people to understand. So when you put it into almost gamifying it, and so that's how I met these guys. I was like, hey, let's run an esports gaming tournament, and let's find these, the high potential, high caliber future leaders, and they don't necessarily know they're leaders yet. And that's the finesse, I guess you could say, that I've had to do. Even, Shiva was a little skeptical of like, oh, what's your intentions? And then Chase like, well, if Shiva signs off, then I'm interested, and so, yeah, no. Yeah, well, we met with Che, and then she's like, well, Shiva's my sidekick, and, let's see, because I think, just to be honest, I think you thought I was building it more for the high school kids, but it's like students, our students are students. I'm 35, and I can still consider myself a student. Like there's so much that the more I know, the less I know. And sometimes it's like, well, wow, it just opened up all these other doors that I didn't even know were there. And so this journey has whether it's events, like you were saying, it's like, how do we get more events? And that's built into the STEM GEMS program. Is we're going to teach you, we're going to give you a template on how to raise your own funds, how to community organize, how to do the grassroots things. The things that were painfully learned, experientially, like failing forward and having to pick myself up and dust myself off. And so ideally we can help you avoid some of those early pitfalls and give you templates and give you pathways, that make it relatively easy. And just like the gaming tournament, you're like, I didn't even know it was STEM until I'm learning something. And so, kind of hiding or, putting the learning objectives or the technical, development into fun things is what the youth wants. I got a brother who's a senior in Arizona, so he's 17, so he's in this age group. And he's, I'm working with him personally on becoming a STEM gem and exporting this system down to Arizona. So we're prototyping here, we're going to prototype there, and we're going to figure out what the best practices are. And it's going to be they're going to let us know what those are, because we're all working on this together. But essentially, they're going to they're the architects of their own lives, and so the more skills that we can give them, the better our future will be. And I like to say, healthy order creates better chaos, and that's on the spectrum of yin and yang. We can see globally or even nationally, there's a lot of chaos right now because we don't have very good order. And if we can work on getting things back orderly, and especially through STEM, we have a much better outcome. And so that's the goal of this whole thing, is just to provide those two things that those students want, the opportunities and the incentives, to really build this out.
Thanks, Jason. Che, did you have a comment that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add on that opportunity question. And so for James and Keegan, both of you are interested in esports, and I know one of my best friends from Twin Falls, he ended up interning at Blizzard, which is a huge coding, huge company for gaming. And so he helped create, these games that y'all might be playing, And so those are things that sometimes we don't piece the dots together, and it's a huge opportunity. And then for Shiva, if you didn't have access to climate science or whatever, then you wouldn't be able to lead the many things that you're leading today. And then for me, every semester I go into my advisor and I say, I'm going to change my major. And I'm like, I want to do economics, I want to do poli-sci, I want to do environmental studies, everything that's not STEM, because those are the things that are easy to connect with. And for me, being a huge people person, those are easy for me to relate to. But then she always sits me down and she's like, but what do you actually want to do? And I'm like, I want to build solutions. And she's like, and that's what an engineer can do. And so haven't necessarily built anything yet, but I'm excited for the opportunity to be able to build.
But you mentioned something in our pre-meeting when we were getting together, and it was really profound. And I would like you to. I know we're kind of going off script a little bit, but you talked about your why. When we asked each student what their why was, and you talked about social impact versus the perfect engineering solution. Yeah. And I thought that was really eye-opening because I had to stop and question that myself. And because I'll let you explain it because I thought it was a really good analogy is we always break the two apart, but yet when you talked about that why was bringing them together because it's not always just the perfect engineering solution. It could benefit the social impact as well if we bring them together. Can you talk about that just a little bit because I thought it was really profound?
Yeah, sure. So in class sometimes we talk about how can we find a compromise between the perfect engineering solution and the perfect social solution? But for me, the perfect engineering solution is also the perfect social solution because engineers are here to build for humanity and we're here to serve people. And so I think that's like the narrative that gets forgotten is that engineers aren't here to build this nice building for nobody to use. It's for us to use and to us to have the space to share information and communicate and outreach. And that's why as I guide my engineering path, it's always thinking about like humans.
Greater good. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I thought that was a really good comment. But what is one piece of advice that you would want us to take away with as it regards to the future of whether it's our society or as it relates to STEM? But if there's one thing you would want this audience to walk away, and the audience that's watching, we are obviously recording this segment as well. But what is one piece of advice that you'd want us to walk away with today as it relates to our future?
If anything, I'm actually gaining advice just from listening to these amazing people right here. Like, I feel like if we get big faces and then we spread this out, I feel like that we can actually give advice to other people. Because I didn't know anything about this, and then you guys told me stuff and kept telling me stuff. So I kind of figured more about STEM when you told me and when you gave me more advice. So the advice that I can give is give more advice, if that makes total sense. Yeah, thank you.
Good advice. Bigger companies sponsor us. It's really good advice.
What do you mean by bigger companies?
I don't know. People with money sponsor us. That's my advice.
Okay.
I agree with James. Give more advice. And I think giving students the power to ask questions and to create solutions, I think that's really key to developing like an innovative spirit that guides everything in STEM, but guides social progress as a whole. And so I really did like that. Put more students in places of leadership and truly engage with students from all backgrounds. And I think that's the key to getting more folks in STEM.
I think in addition to connecting with students from many different backgrounds and especially focusing on those in rural areas, for me, the reason why I chose engineering was because I used to babysit one of my neighbor's kids and he was a civil engineer. And I was like, I have to like job shadow for school. Can I job shadow you? And he took me on these like cool sites and he was like, oh, and I built that and I built this. And then like, do you want to help me design this? And then I ended up getting an internship there. And that was like my first like real world connection to real careers. And so I think inviting students into your workspaces and being like, this is what I do day to day. This is how it applies to the things that you're involved with. I think that would be a cool way to get more kids involved.
Great. Thanks for sharing. Now, again, I would like to see if there's any questions from the audience. If you have any questions, go ahead and raise your hand. Jason.
Just off the point of incentives, let's start with Keegan. when we were talking about what you need to get excited, and when we were talking about Rocket League, what were you saying? It's like, how can we get you to the highest level? What did you say you needed?
All right. So I play on a ridiculously old PS4. PS4 came out in like 2013. It's about to be 2023. That's basically 10 years I've had that. I had it pretty much since it came out. And it's pretty difficult playing on something, that old. The game came out after the the PlayStation. And to be able to do things like reaction speed, seeing it better, and just having better programs, like being able to run those programs and use those programs to train and all sorts of things, that is what I need to really get further in, rank and in esports to get better. Along with my teammates, they would also really like a computer or of some sorts that can decently run the games that we play competitively.
You engage in STEM, what would that look like? What could have been done early on that would have made that pathway easier? So I'm going to repeat the question just for the sake of the cameras and the recording, but if you could reimagine your K through 12 education, what would that look like to you?
When you grow up in an area where a lot of your peers aren't really thinking about post-secondary education, a lot of the people that you interact with that didn't go to college, you don't really have that track in mind. And then once you're a senior, for me, I was a senior and I was like, oh my gosh, we have to apply to go to college? Like, I didn't even know that. And then had to scramble and put everything together. And so I think the biggest thing is just exposing students, especially those who don't have access to these opportunities, and you can get here. You can go to this school or have this kind of career, and this is what's possible for you. I think it's really just exposure.
James?
I think if they kind of opened my eyes in elementary school, no, because elementary school is just where you kind of learn that simple addition plus, multiplication. But in middle school and up, honestly, I'd even just say high school. If they opened my eyes up to colleges, because if you asked me a year ago, I would have no idea what STEM was. And honestly, I had no idea that you can even do majors in college or go to college for a specific reason. I had no idea. I thought you just showed up and got your master's and blah, 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 blah. But now, this has opened my eyes to so many more opportunities. I didn't even know you can go to college to play Rocket League. And now here we are. So if I could just kind of redo one thing, I would say colleges and just kind of exposing some people like me would be a really, really good thing to do, especially in high school. Because if I asked a freshman, what college or are you thinking about going to college, they'd more than likely say no, or they would not even know exactly what to do, what they want to do. And I feel we should kind of expose more of that crowd in that type of area. That's what I think. But great question, though. Thank you.
Once again, it ties back to communication. Just saying.
Shiva, any closing comments on that one?
I think that was all really good. I would say don't discount elementary school, though. I think I picked up a love for STEM in elementary school. I remember 5th grade, Miss Young's class, we did code.org for 3 hours every week. And next thing I knew, 2 years later, I was taking AP Comp Sci. Hey, it does track. And having that science curriculum throughout elementary school is really valuable. One thing that I'm super lucky, I think, to have gotten so much access to STEM in school. I think communicating kind of what opportunities come next. And I think one way to do that is by building schools physically that are indicative of all the opportunities that you can take from school. So building more resilient schools, building schools that look like this, right? Like this room, and building schools that tackle the challenges that we're facing today, especially sustainability, right? I think that presents an awesome opportunity for students to go on campus and learn where STEM is being applied to solve, like Chase said, to solve problems that humans, like real humans, are facing, right? And again, that just takes funding. So yeah, I think that would be one thing I might change, would be how can we build a better, a school that better demonstrates what STEM looks like.
So another thing that I would also want to change is more opportunities like these, because this gets my name out there. This gets our name out there. You know, for you, you're an engineering, or you're doing that in college. That's insane. I think that's absolutely great. And so I feel like if we have more things like these, we can get our name out there. So I feel like if we had more opportunities like these that, STEM held, or just that we knew, then we can kind of get our name out there more. But that's what I wanted to add on. I forgot. I blanked on that when I was speaking. I apologize.
Well, and that's what we need, is an opportunity, but we also need to make sure we don't question dreams, right? Give the opportunity, but also encouragement. Too often when we tend to get older, we think of the word can't, or we start putting up barriers, where we also need to question and ask why, right? Because often as we're younger, we have dreams. Well, why don't we continue to have those dreams as we get older? And that's what we want to encourage as we keep going, is making sure we're embracing those dreams, because we can, right? There's opportunities out there. But I want to say thank you so much for being a part of this panel. You are already accomplished and amazing people. Remember these names, because they're going places, and I'm excited to see where they go in their careers, especially after so much of you've already done already. So thank you all for being on this panel today. I also want to give a shout out to Jason, and I'm going to pass it back to you too, but I want to say thank you, Jason, for all you do with US Energy and the Idaho STEM Gems. I also want to thank the Idaho STEM Action Center for allowing me to be here today on stage. And then thank you all for being here. But pass it back to you, Jason, for a closing statement.
Great job. Thank you so much for that. And then when we're looking future forward, we're going to keep providing opportunities to these students, because I got to keep them excited. And so with that said, our next opportunity for STEM Gems will be at Boise State's Albertsons Library in the incubation space. It'll be with, we're partnered with Venture College. And so this will be a part of the Carbon Summit. And to go along with our dreaming themes, we're going to actually give away awards for best dreams and best actions. And so this will fall this will be the third year of the Carbon Summit. And I'm actually going to the Netherlands in 2 weeks to speak at Impact Fest in The Hague, International City of Peace and Justice. And so we're going to be offering partnerships, whether it's an event-based partnership with Impact Fest, whether it's a university partnership with Boise State, or if it's a city partnership with the City of Boise. They are very excited about that. We're working through the channels here in Boise, through the university, and I make the decision on the events. So this is another opportunity for them. We're going to have an invitational esports open, where we're going to be inviting to play other countries, whether it's, I'll be in Netherlands, Belgium, and Switzerland. So we're going to go find some competition for these guys and provide those incentives that they need. So we're also going to have a STEM Gems Job and Career Fair on April 20th, which is Earth Day. That's a Thursday, a couple days before this. And so we're going to be parlaying all these events and opportunities together to keep these students excited and keep providing them with opportunities to grow and become the gems that they want to be. So again, thank you guys so much for being here. Let's give these guys a round of applause, and we'll just keep on going forward.